Before the sun even thought about rising, the city streets were already a symphony of noise. Merchants shouting prices, kids running barefoot between market stalls, and the smell of fresh bread mixing with dust and heat. In this swirl of life, one woman kept to the shadows, covered in layers of cloth and a silence that had lasted for 12 long years. She lived with a bleeding that never stopped. Now this wasn't just an illness, it was isolation. Under the law of her people, this condition made her unclean. She couldn't go to the temple to worship. She couldn't sit next to someone without making them ceremonially unclean too. Everything she touched became defiled. Her entire world had shrunk down to the size of her shame. The scriptures tell us she had suffered under many physicians. In our words, she had spent everything, her money, her strength, her hope, desperately trying to get better. Some doctors promised cures. Others just took advantage of her desperation. And with every new attempt, every flicker of hope, she was left disappointed. Now, 12 years later, she had nothing left but pain. And a whisper. Someone said Jesus was coming through town that day. She'd heard the stories, the paralyzed man who could now walk, the blind who could see, the lepers made clean. She had to wonder, were these stories real, or just hope disguised as gossip? But a thought took root in her heart. If he really is who they say he is, maybe, just maybe, he could change everything. Then reality hit her like a cold wave. A woman like her wasn't supposed to be anywhere near a crowd, let alone a holy teacher. To touch someone would make them unclean too, and that's where the battle started right there in her soul, a war between fear and faith. Faith whispered, "Go," fear screamed, "Stay hidden." She pulled her cloak tighter around her, and against all reason, she stepped out. The main road was electric with energy as Jesus approached. Everywhere he went, people gathered, farmers, mothers, beggars, and scholars, all pressing in close. Just then Jairus, a ruler of the synagogue, fell to his knees before Jesus, begging him to come heal his dying daughter. The air was thick with urgency, and the crowd surged forward. Our unnamed woman found herself swept into that stream of bodies, a picture of humility among hundreds of hopeful faces. She tried to keep her distance, but it was impossible. Every step closer to Jesus was a risk. What if someone recognized her? What if they condemned her, shunned her all over again? But something deep inside her refused to turn back. She told herself, if I can just touch the edge of his cloak, I'll be healed. Not his hand, not even his attention, just the smallest thread from his robe. That tiny mustard seed kind of faith became her courage, enough to make her reach through the chaos. People were bumping into her, voices shouting his name. Then she saw him, just a glimpse of a brown robe brushing past. She lunged forward, her hand trembling, and she touched the fringe of his garment. In that instant, the world stopped. The crowd was still moving, the dust was still swirling, but inside her, something shifted like lightning striking deep in her soul. She felt it instantly. The bleeding stopped. The pain that had been her constant companion for 12 years was gone. Her body went still with a... But then came the moment she never expected. Jesus stopped too. He turned around in that sea of faces and asked, "Who touched me?" His disciples looked at him, completely bewildered. "Master," they said, "the whole crowd is pressing in on you. Everyone is touching you." But Jesus was insistent. "No, someone touched me. I know that power has gone out from me." The woman froze. Her secret miracle had just exposed her. Everyone around her started looking, searching for the culprit. Her heart pounded in her chest. She could have slipped away, healed and hidden. But something deeper pulled her forward once more. Shaking, she fell at his feet and confessed everything: the sickness, the 12 years of shame, the desperate, hopeful touch. The crowd started whispering. The disciples looked on, speechless. Jesus knelt slightly so his eyes could meet hers, the first truly compassionate gaze she had seen in over a decade. He smiled and said, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction." Let's focus on two words there: daughter and faith. In one single sentence, he gave her back both her health and her identity. For 12 years, she was known only as the unclean woman. In one moment, she became a daughter, in a society that often devalued women, abandoned the sick, and silenced the ashamed. Jesus restored her dignity in front of everyone. Her healing wasn't just physical, it was relational, spiritual, and emotional. He gave her back her place in the community and her right to belong. Let's slow down and really feel the lesson here. The woman didn't need to ask for permission to reach for Jesus. She didn't have to clean herself up first or come up with the perfect words. She came desperate, raw, and anxious, but filled with this powerful belief that a single touch was enough. Maybe that's what Jesus saw in her faith in its purest, most honest form. The kind of faith that risks public embarrassment for just a chance at grace. The kind that believes contact with him is enough, even when the whole world tells you you're unworthy. The miracle happened before he even spoke a word to her. She touched, she believed, and power flowed. But Jesus stopped not to embarrass her, but to make her healing public so her shame could finally end. It wasn't enough for him that she was cured. He wanted her to be truly seen. Sometimes he won't let us stay anonymous with our miracles because he knows what that silence has cost us. He draws us out into the open so we can finally walk free. Imagine her walking home afterward. No more hiding behind veils. No more avoiding her neighbors. That small patch of dusty road where she reached out would forever glow in her memory, the point of contact between her suffering and her salvation. 12 years of pain completely erased by 1 second of faith. Her story reminds us that faith doesn't always have to shout. Sometimes it just reaches. Faith doesn't wait for permission. It acts, and faith never, ever goes unnoticed. Jesus still feels it when our hearts reach for him. Maybe your bleeding isn't physical. Maybe it's regret, addiction, depression, or a slow, quiet loss of hope that just refuses to heal. You've tried all the solutions, the doctors, the systems, and friends, but the ache is still there. And then you hear that faint rumor again, Jesus is near. So you gather what little faith you have left and whisper, if I can just touch him. That moment your reach is what heaven is waiting for. Not your perfection, not your eloquence, just your reach. Your reach says, I still believe. And just like that woman, you'll discover his power hasn't faded across the centuries. He still stops for the seekers. He still calls the fearful daughter, son, beloved. He still replaces isolation with community, pain with peace, and rejection with restoration. If you listen closely in the crowd of your own life, you can still hear his voice asking, who touched me? Not as an accusation, but as an invitation. He feels when faith brushes against him, and when he feels it, everything changes. 12 years of loss for one moment of light, one trembling hand touching the edge of his robe. That's the miracle of faith, because in God's kingdom, one small touch of belief will always outweigh a lifetime of defeat. You may feel unseen, unheard, or unclean, but the Savior still stops for you. Reach for him. You'll find he's closer than you think. Thanks so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more content like this. We'll see you in the next one.